Hello to everyone who's taken the time to read my story. I'm Susan, and I'd like to share an experience from a year ago that completely altered the way I view love and relationships. At that time, I was excited to build a life with Roger, my husband, who had always held a special place in my heart. Like many people, I believed our bond was unshakable. Roger wasn't wealthy, and his income was lower than mine, but that never bothered me. I valued our love far more than any financial disparity. I was financially independent and content with the affection he showed me, so I didn't mind covering most of our shared expenses. For example, when we decided to move into a new house before our wedding, I willingly paid 75% of the rent. Over time, though, I began to realize that Roger saw my generosity as an opportunity to take advantage of me. I can't deny that there were warning signs, but I was too deeply in love to see them for what they were. One major issue was Roger's expectation that I would constantly financially support him. At first, I didn't mind helping, but his demands began to escalate. When I started to say no, it was clear he was upset, but I still didn't recognize it as a serious problem. Everything changed just before our wedding when Roger made an outrageous request. He urgently asked for my credit card to cover wedding expenses, but when I asked for details, he became evasive and irritated. This was out of character for the open, honest relationship I thought we had, and it made me question everything about our dynamic and our future together. I insisted on knowing why he needed my credit card so urgently, but his response was dismissive and controlling, making my suspicions grow. That moment was a turning point, forcing me to confront the difference between love and exploitation. What he asked for next shocked me to the core. Roger wanted my credit card to book his bachelor party trip to Fiji for himself and his groomsmen. It took a moment for the reality of his words to sink in. My disbelief must have been clear, because Roger's frustration grew as I hesitated, asking him to explain why he thought I should pay for this trip. Roger, this is insane. Why should I fund your bachelor trip to Fiji? Isn't this something your groomsmen should pay for? If it's too expensive, pick somewhere else, I said, unable to hide my shock. He insisted Fiji was his dream destination, claiming that he would cover the costs for his friends because they couldn't afford it. I refused to budge. I wasn't about to spend my money on a trip I wasn't even invited to. This sparked a heated argument, and Roger stormed off to stay with his mother. To my surprise, Kathleen, his mother, sided with me and sent him back, albeit with reluctance. After days of silence, I came up with a compromise. Instead of his bachelor party in Fiji, I suggested we spend our honeymoon there instead. Though Roger was initially resistant, fearing embarrassment with his friends, he eventually agreed. I thought we had found a resolution, and I looked forward to our honeymoon in Fiji as a married couple. Our wedding day was perfect, and 2 weeks later, we were set to leave for Fiji. But the day before our departure, I found Roger standing by the fireplace, holding my passport. Confused, I asked what he was doing. He casually mentioned that he needed to take care of something before we left. Before I could fully process what was happening, he tossed my passport into the fire. My mind struggled to comprehend what I had just witnessed, my husband intentionally destroying the document that would allow us to go on our honeymoon. As the passport burned, I stared at Roger in disbelief. He smirked at my shock, amused by my reaction, and then laughed aloud. My heart sank. I managed to choke out, "Roger, what the hell did you just do? Did you really just throw my passport in the fire?" "Can't you see, Susan? That's exactly what I did," he replied coldly, sending a chill down my spine. "But why? Why would you do something like that?" Istamara. My mind racing to understand the depth of his actions, and in that moment, it all clicked. The truth of what he had done, destroying my passport on purpose, hit me with full force. I demanded to know why, and his response cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. "What did you expect, Susan? I warned you about vetoing my bachelor party. Did you honestly think I'd just let it go?" His words stung like a slap, exposing a side of him I had never seen before. The ridiculousness of his justification left me utterly speechless. He was punishing me for not paying for his bachelor trip with what he now considered our money, even though I had clearly expressed my discomfort with his demands. As he twisted the situation into some sort of revenge, a cold realization settled in. My heart struggled to accept that the man I had married could be so vindictive. "How does burning my passport help you, Roger? What exactly do you gain from this?" I asked, struggling to comprehend the depths of his pettiness. His next words hit me like a punch to the stomach, revealing his ultimate betrayal. "I'm going to Fiji, Susan, without you." His declaration, that what was supposed to be our honeymoon would now be his solo escape, left me reeling. The cruelty and absurdity of his actions painted a clear picture of the man I had married, a revelation that shattered me. Roger's response to my disbelief was a laugh that sent a chill down my spine. It was a laugh so hollow and devoid of warmth. It sounded like it came from a complete stranger. He seemed entirely unfazed by my shock, casually mentioning that the trip had originally been meant for us both. But now that my passport was gone, I couldn't join him. "Because of this senseless act, we're going to lose all the money we spent on the honeymoon," I argued, hoping to appeal to his sense of reason, but he was unfazed, smugly stating that while I wouldn't be going, nothing was stopping him. He twisted the knife further by suggesting that he was taking this trip as a belated bachelor's party, leaving me behind to deal with my own choices. His indifference was staggering. "You're really going to go without me to our honeymoon?" I pressed, still hoping for some sign of remorse, but he coldly justified his decision, framing it as a lesson for me, claiming I had forced him to choose between his bachelor party and our honeymoon. Without another word, he ended the conversation, announcing his early flight and dismissing me as he went upstairs. Left alone, the full weight of the situation began to settle in. Betrayal turned into heartbreak as I realized the control and abuse I had once seen in my own family had found its way into my marriage. It was a painful reminder of a past I had hoped to escape. I knew I couldn't let this slide, clinging to a small hope that Roger would see the error of his ways and seek forgiveness. I even entertained the idea of couples counseling, such was the depth of my love for him. But that hope shattered the following morning when Roger descended the stairs, his bags packed and ready for the airport, not sparing me a second glance. My heart broke as I watched him leave, my marriage crumbling before my eyes while he walked out the door, leaving me behind in a flood of tears. The day that followed was a blur of sorrow, until Kathleen, my mother-in-law, called to check on our connecting flight to Malaysia, unaware of the chaos unfolding. Her confusion when I explained that I hadn't gone on the trip only highlighted the chasm Roger had created, not just between us, but between our families. Through tears, I explained to Kathleen how what was supposed to be our honeymoon had been twisted into something unrecognizable. She was immediately appalled, her fury igniting as she processed what Roger had done. She was ready to confront him with every ounce of anger she had. After calming me down, Kathleen made it clear that Roger could not be allowed to escape the consequences of his actions. His behavior wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a deliberate betrayal. As I shared my growing doubts about the future of my marriage, a heavy weight settled over me. The man I had married felt like a stranger now, capable of acts of pure spite. Kathleen, equally disillusioned, expressed her sorrow at the way Roger had turned out, acknowledging her role in shaping him, but ultimately declaring him a lost cause. Her support in that moment was a lifeline, an affirmation that I wasn't imagining the extremity of his behavior. As we talked more, we uncovered a pattern of exploitation and entitlement in Roger's past. His mooching had only worsened over time, and the man I had married seemed to be completely consumed by selfishness. This realization steeled our resolve. With Kathleen's help, we devised a plan to teach Roger a lesson he wouldn't forget. Over the next 5 days, we meticulously set our plan in motion, preparing for the moment we would confront him. When the day arrived, we dialed into a video call with Roger, who was as smug as ever, bragging about how his solo honeymoon in Fiji was everything he'd ever dreamed of. I kept my composure, masking the storm of emotions inside me as his words only served to fuel the necessity of our plan. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about asserting my worth and setting boundaries with someone who had shown no respect for me or our marriage. Roger's gleeful boasting about his trip took a sharp turn when I hinted at the end of our marriage. The prospect of losing his comfortable lifestyle seemed to hit him hard. His confidence quickly faltered, and panic replaced his earlier bravado. "You really think ending our marriage over a trip is justified?" he protested, still unable to see the irony in his own actions. "I'm doing you a favor, Roger," I replied coldly. "Since you prefer bachelor trips, I'm giving you the freedom to enjoy them indefinitely." Roger was visibly shaken as I outlined the reality of his situation. He had always assumed my resources were at his disposal, never considering the consequences of his entitled actions. When he mentioned his return flights were already booked, I delivered the final blow. I informed him that all of the travel expenses were charged to my credit card, and with our marriage ending, I had no intention of funding his return. His face drained of color as the reality of being stranded without my financial support sank in. His disbelief quickly turned into desperation. "Oh, Roger, you seem to misunderstand," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not just planning this, I've already started. I've moved out, and I've begun the annulment process. Our marriage and your free ride are over." His pleas for a chance to talk in person, offering to cut his trip short, fell on deaf ears. I had made my decision. No last-minute promises could undo the betrayal and disrespect he had shown. This wasn't just about a trip, it was about respect, trust, and the painful realization that I deserved more than Roger was willing to give. His deliberate destruction of my passport had marked the point of no return. It symbolized his utter disregard for me and the life we were supposed to build together. "This marriage ended the moment you burned my passport, Roger," I said, my voice firm. "You made your choices, and now you have to live with them." I ended the call abruptly, immediately canceling all bookings made with my credit card. I sent him the screenshots of the cancellations, watching as his reactions ranged from insults to desperate pleas. Unable to grasp the gravity of his situation, I blocked his number, severing the last thread of communication, leaving him to face the consequences alone. It took Roger a full day to return, his funds exhausted by his indulgent spending. Desperate, he had to borrow money for a flight home, something he had never imagined he would be forced to do. His attempts to reach out to Kathleen were futile. She, like me, had distanced herself from his manipulative ways. When Roger finally arrived at Kathleen's house, his shock was palpable. He couldn't comprehend why I wasn't waiting for him at home, but Kathleen didn't spare him any sympathy. Her cold gaze met his, and she bluntly questioned the justification for his actions. For the first time, she stood firmly by me, choosing to side with the woman he had wronged, rather than the son she had tried so hard to protect. Roger's attempts to paint himself as the victim were nothing short of pathetic, especially considering the truth of the situation. Kathleen, fully aware of his betrayal, showed no sympathy for him. Instead, she stood firmly by me, offering refuge and unwavering support.